Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, Velocities in Music. Today, Tom and I are going to review an album by an artist called Laura Marling. And the album title is A Creature I Don't Know. Laura Marling is a young female folk artist. And she does some really creative work. This is her third album, and I think she's
21.
21.
Yeah,
that's pretty crazy, to tell you the truth. And right away from putting this album on my iPod and listening to it, I was pretty blown away by how direct she is and how aggressive she is in just packing the listener with her songwriting. You know, from the second that the first track, the Muse, comes on, you are being just barraged with just banjo and folk and her just very distinct vocal taste. And that was something that caught me off guard and immediately grabbed my attention, which to me, an artist, when they're making an album, the first thing they should want to do is capture the listener's attention. It's just like writing a paper. You have to have a good introduction. And if you don't, then the whole composition is kind of failed. Well, Laura Marling nails it with the Muse. I feel like she really just reached out and grabbed your ear and then says, listen to it. Now, Tom loved this album, and so I'm going to turn this over to him and let him kind of talk about the things he liked about it.
Yeah. Well, you know, Laura Marling has been on my radar for a while. I do a radio show, co-host a radio show with a friend of mine, and it's kind of an all-folk-centered radio show. And so we play a lot of Laura Marling, but that's because my co-host, which I actually wish she could have been here today to review it, but Jake and I have really weird schedules, and it was kind of a last-minute planning thing, so she couldn't. But she was the one that introduced me to Laura Marling because we play her on our radio show a lot, and I've always liked the tracks that we play, but for some reason never really bothered to just dive into her discography. And so this was my first full album experience listening to her, and I was completely blown away. It took me a while to really get there, but just once you get to know each of these songs, just the quality of all of them. I mean, there is no filler on this album. And so many of the songs jump out at me. I had to restrain myself to picking half the album for track picks. Yep. I mean, that's good songwriting right there. And what she does is, you know, we reviewed a while ago, Tin Hat Trio, Rodeo Eroded. And a lot of the instrumentals that you get on that album, which, I mean, there's only one track with vocals on that album, the instrumentals are very similar to what you get here, only a little toned down, a little more in the background, because the focus is obviously Laura's voice, which is incredible. It's so endearing. The thing I love about it is that she has such good range. She can hit the pitches perfectly, but she knows when to be imperfect. She knows when to let those just kind of vocal flaws and humanity shine through, and it makes for a very engaging listen.
It's honest, it's authentic, and authenticity sells music. It's what makes music sound good. What makes us as listeners able to relate to it is that authenticity.
And so you have a good combination or a good variety of song structures on here. There's a handful of them that start really soft with just the kind of soft guitar and vocals and build into something huge that you never would have expected, yet somehow feels so natural. And then other songs that, you know, she keeps it a little simple. I mean, the closing track, All My Rage, a little more classic folk song. She keeps it much more simple with the vocal patterns, but it's so much it's so memorable still. And I mean, I just love this album. I'm just gushing over it.
And it deserves it. And part of first of all, I think her sound, the first take I had of comparing this, trying to relate to it, it was a mix of Regina Spektor's, you know, playful songwriting style with Nick Drake's sound.
Yeah.
So I mean, very, you know, obviously two artists from very different decades, you know, coming together in just one blend. But you know, most of these songs are you know, made up of these, you know, finger-picked acoustic guitar or banjo or stuff like that. But she lets all these other elements, you know, she references, you know, there's classic rock, you know, references here, you know, to Heart and Led Zeppelin. But what really got me was how she included all these other instruments like piano and that, to me, when you can include a variety of instruments and have a bass foundation sound and then build on top of it, and couple that with using a variety of song structures and just high quality songwriting, that is the perfect recipe for just a completely solid album. And what put the icing on the cake is how this thing flows. It starts off strong. And then you have a few other tracks that are all very good tracks. And then there's 3 in the middle. The Beast, Night After Night, and My Friends, which I just think are incredible tracks. And then it goes into some softer tracks. And then track 9 is Sophia, and that's this huge... I really feel like that's kind of one of the album highlights.
Yeah.
It lets just this... It lets the full range of her songwriting capacity to come out, and that's something that I feel like an artist needs to do on every album. They need to show off their skills.
And at the end of that track, it gets even a little closer to traditional country,
right?
Which, you know, we're not even big country fans, but the way she makes it blend with the rest of the album and the rest of the song, it just works. I mean, I find this album really hard not to love. If you like folk, if you've listened to like Mumford & Sons and some of the more popular folk stuff that's out there, listen to this, because I mean, the production, I would actually say, is probably closest to Mumford & Sons than anything I've heard, just with how clean and how big sounding it is. But I just think the songwriting is better. I think the performance is more endearing, more authentic.
Even if you like the Decemberists too, this is another album to definitely get into. This is one of those classic. A Creature I Don't Know is one of those classic albums where the best way to describe it, of how we're going to score this, is when you put 10 songs together on an album that they're all great songs, you're going to have a good album.
Yeah.
If you just put good songs together, you inherently will have a good album. It's just the easiest kind of album to review. I'm giving this an 86.
I'm going 90.
Yeah, you really like this, and that's pretty awesome. And I think I'll get there over time. I think you've just been a little bit more exposed to Laura Marling. So. What did you guys think? Have you heard of Laura Marling? Have you listened to some of her previous works? And what did you think of A Creature I Don't Know? Because this is one that's going to hit, I think, our 2011 list, which will come out sometime in the next couple weeks. So I'm really interested to hear what you guys thought. Leave us a comment at www.velocitiesandmusic.com or youtube.com/velocitiesandmusic. Follow us on Twitter. Like us on Facebook. I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, moving music critique forward.
Keep those thoughts from side.